Yo guys, what is up? Max here with our Path of Exile 2 video, and today we've got another build feature on the channel. This one is from my buddy Seroc. Seroc is a fellow Maxroll writer, so he knows this stuff. He's really good at making builds, and this is his Frost Mage Infernalist that he's been working on. It is very, very powerful. It's tanky. It's got great clear speed, and it shreds bosses. And he's doing some really interesting things that I wanted to share with you guys. So huge credit to him. I will have a link down to his YouTube and his Maxroll planner down below. And he let me get on his character, and we talked for a while, and he explained everything. So I'm going to do my best to break down his build for you guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get right into it. So we're going to start with a bit of a build overview. How does the build tick? And then we'll get into like more specifics. So to start, we are mainly benefiting from skeletal frost mages. This is a cold crit build. Seroc was originally playing arsonists, and that was going really well, but he just found the frost mages to be better in his opinion. The big thing that the frost mages offer, honestly, is freeze. They're able to instantly freeze everything, which allows us to have more survivability, but it also locks enemies in place for the Reavers. While we are getting a lot of damage from frost mages, the Reavers are also able to just nail enemies when they are frozen by the frost mages, and these Reavers are also doing pretty massive damage. We're also able to work into crit with the frost mages and the Reavers via self-casting Eye of Winter, which crit right now in the game with Eye of Winter is incredibly powerful. I use the same tech on our Ice Shot build. It allows us to stack up to 100% crit chance on bosses, which is really nice. And while we're playing this build, we're not actually clicking any of the commands of the minions. We're basically just kind of walking around and then self-casting Eye of Winter, Frost Bomb, and Hypothermia. And so we can self-cast and debuff for our minions, and then our minions will just be deleting packs, freezing, and the gameplay is pretty chill, pretty laid back, but it does a ton of damage. So let's get into the skill gems. So to start, we're using Skeletal Warriors. These are kind of melee supports for our Reaver, and we're going to be supporting the Reavers by allowing the Warriors to break armor. Now, we've got them with Splinter so that they break armor, Demolishers so they break more armor, Heavy Swing so they deal more melee damage, which is then going to equate to more armor break, and Lacerate for a bit of bleed. Now, the reason we want the Warriors to be doing all of the armor break is because we want the Reavers to mainly be able to be supported with a bunch of pure damage. So we're setting up Warriors as supports for the Reavers, and then the Reaver is going to get all the big damage gems. Then we've got our Ray Shield Power Siphon. You can kind of just ignore these. They come on the wand and on the shield, not something that we're ever really clicking. Then we get the Summon Infernal Hound. Now, there's some interesting tech that Seroc is doing with these. So to start, we've got them with Meat Shield. These are a big bit of survivability for us. If you didn't know that these Infernal Hounds are just by default going to absorb a bunch of the incoming damage for us. Meat Shield minions from our supported skills deal less damage, but they have more max life. Obviously, if they die, all of a sudden, now we don't have that extra DR, so we want to keep them alive. Fiery Death, enemies ignited by them have a chance to explode. More AoE clear and more burning. Fire Mastery, Culling Strike, and then Maim. But the big tech that we're using on Infernal Hounds is they're going to be our only source of Ignite. And we care about Ignite because of our Skeletal Storm Mages. Now, Skeletal Storm Mages are able to do a bunch of lightning damage, and we care about that because that means they can inflict shock. Shock is a massive damage multiplier for us, and we're going to be using Overcharge on these Storm Mages so that they have more shock magnitude. Stormfire, this is the key thing. Shocks from supported skills do not expire on ignited enemies, so we get 100% uptime on our shocks if things are getting ignited, which our Infernal Hound is going to be doing. Then we've got Conduction for more shock chance and Lightning Pen, so they deal a bit more lightning damage. For the Frost Mages, we've got Wild Shards. This is something that we swap out on bosses to concentrated effect. Wild Shards is great for mobbing, but if we want to do specifically bossing, we can put on concentrated effect for making them deal more single target damage. We have Scatter Shot so that they fire more projectiles. Cold Mastery, +1 levels. Feeding Frenzy so that they deal more damage. They take more damage as well. Not something we're too worried about. Our minions are pretty tanky on this setup. And then Arcane Tempo so that they have more cast speed. Then on our Reavers, we've got Brutality, more Fizz damage, Martial Tempo, more attack speed, Physical Mastery, half for more Fizz damage, and then Bloodlust supported skills deal 30% more melee physical damage against bleeding enemies. Once again, we have Skeletal Warriors with Lacerate, so that these can inflict the bleed, and then the Reavers can benefit from that. I really, really like this setup that Seroc's done, basically setting up a bunch of like support minions and then the big damage ones. Speaking of support minions, we've also got Skeletal Clerics. These can revive our dead skeletons and heal them. We've got them with Minion Mastery, Ingenuity for less cooldown, and then Last Gas. Minions from supported skills die 4 seconds after their life is reduced to 0. Basically, if one of our clerics does die, they can stay up on the field for a bit longer and keep all of our other minions healing, and then they'll eventually die 4 seconds later. Grim Feast we are using for survivability. Energy Shield is a large defensive layer for this build. It's not our only defensive layer. We also have DR from our Infernal Hound. We're using a shield. We've got a bunch of block chance, but we're also going to be stacking up like 13,000 Energy Shield while we're running around in maps, and Grim Feast is going to allow us to stack up a double our Energy Shield. We're using that with Clarity for some extra mana regen. Then we've got Pain Offering, and this is something that you're going to be clicking especially on bosses because it's a big buff, not only to the survivability of the other minions, but also their damage. We're going to be using this with Font of Rage. Font of Rage is going to empower the damage of our Reavers. We've got this also with Ablation for 30% increased effect of the offering, and Font of Blood for more regen. Once again, this is something that we're most likely going to be clicking on bosses or any big target that really needs the DPS burst. And so getting a bunch of extra healing, getting a bunch of extra damage is very, very nice. We already talked about these Skeletal Storm Mages, basically just inflicting shock. We've got Blink on our weapon swap so that we can move around quicker. And then we've got the skills that we're actually using, because while we're in maps, we are really not clicking any buttons like that are related to the actual minions that we're using. For example, like we're never actually clicking command for Ice Bomb on Skeletal Frost Mages. Seroc said that he doesn't click this because it costs a ton of mana and it's actually just less damage. They're going to be dealing more damage just spamming out Ice Shards. And so the skills that we're clicking in maps is Eye of Winter, Hypothermia, and Frost Bomb. Now, Eye of Winter is really important because it inflicts critical weakness. This is tech that I was using on our like Ice Shot Deadeye build, but critical weakness gives us stacking flat additive crit chance, which can build up to 20 stacks. This will allow us to get massive amounts of crit chance on bosses, and it's a huge damage increase for our mages, which are going to be massively benefiting from that crit, as well as our Reavers. So on Eye of Winter, we've got Pierce, we've got Unleash so that we cast more of them. Arcane Surge, because we're going to be this like the main skill that we're casting. When we're casting a bunch of it, we're going to gain Arcane Surge for more like mana regen and cast speed. And then mobility, we don't care about the damage of this. We just care about, being able to use it while we're moving around. And so mobility lets us cast it and move faster. Then we've got Hypothermia. This is a curse that's going to lower cold reses. Definitely very important for bossing. We've got it with Spell Cascade, Heighten Curse, and Focus Curse to strip away any cold reses that monsters might have. And then in addition to the like cold res strip from Hypothermia, we're also using Frost Bomb. This creates a pulsing orb of frost, which each pulse inflicts cold exposure, which is another like resource strip or resistance strip. So we've got cold exposure plus hypothermia, and then we've got strip away. Exposures applied have 30% increased effect, magnified effect for 40% more area of our frost bomb, and spell echo. These skills, Eye of Winter, Hypothermia, and Frost Bomb, are the things that you're going to be clicking while you're walking through maps and on bosses, because we're not actually like clicking any of the minion stuff. All right, now let's talk about the skill tree and Ascendancy. By the way, just one thing to keep in mind for any minion build is minions are only affected by skill nodes that specifically say minions. So like this is minions deal increased damage, or like minions have reduced reservation. This is minions gain crit damage bonus. Nodes like, for example, this node, increased crit damage bonus, because it specifically doesn't say minions, will not apply to them. So just something to keep in mind when you're speccing out our skill tree. So to start, we are grabbing a bunch of minion attack speed, damage, mana regen, and more like energy shield stuff. Energy shield is a large portion of our survivability, so grabbing all the energy shield nodes is really nice. Then we're working our way up here for more minion revive speed, minion max life, Relentless Fallen for more minion movement speed and attack and cast speed. By the way, if you ever need your minions to like catch up with you, you can just weapon swap and swap back. It'll kind of like respawn them. And then we get to our first kind of like interesting thing that we're using. These are Grand Spectrum Emeralds. I honestly hadn't seen them before hopping on this character, but basically they give us 2% increased spirit per saga to Grand Spectrum. With spirit, we get more minions. So I actually just put on one of these, and we were able to go on our frost mages from 11 to 13. And obviously, the more of these that you have on, the more value you're going to get out of them. So we're using, I think, 3 of them at the moment. It might just be 2. Yeah, there's 3. So we got 3 spectrums for 6% total increased spirit, which is very, very nice. Then we're working our way up to Grip of Evil for minion crit damage. Once again, we are a crit damage build. We've got Illuminated Crown for energy shield from our equipped helmet. We're going to try to get as big of a energy shield helmet as possible. We've got Crystalline Flesh for all reses and max reses. All of our minions are sitting at 83% all res, which just helps them with their survivability so much. More minion revive if they do die. We're going for Necrotic Touch for more crit chance. Up here for Energy Shield, more intelligence. We've got this for more energy shield and max LE res. Max LE res is very important for us because of our Ascendancy node, which we'll talk about in a second. Minions have reduced reservation. We're coming over here for more minion res and minions still increase damage. And then these nodes are very, very powerful for our survivability. We're getting Ancient Aegis for 60% increased energy shield from our equipped body armor, which is massive. And there's also Wide Barrier, which gives us 30% increased block chance. We're currently sitting at a 57% block chance, which is really nice. It's, once again, another layer of survivability for us. But yeah, that is our skill tree. For the Ascendancy nodes, you're going to want to start by picking Loyal Hellhound. This gives us inherent survivability, which is great, but it also gives us another minion, and the Infernal Hellhound is pretty solid. It's doing a fair bit of things for this build, particularly our main source of Ignite. Then we're coming over here for Altered Flesh. This gives us cold and lightning damage taken as fire. That's why max LE res is so important. And it's also why, when we talk about our gear, why we're using +1 max fire reses on all of our gear, because we're going to be getting up to like 79 or 79% fire res, which is very nice. It just means that all of the other incoming damage is going to get converted to fire, and we're going to take less damage from that. So that is very nice. And then the 20% of Fizz taken as Chaos is also massive survivability from Fizz, because we inherently do not have too much armor. Basically just have like a little bit, I think, from our shield. But yeah, getting some Fizz conversions also really nice. Then we're taking the Hand and Will for a bunch more spirit. Once again, spirit is directly damaged for this build, so getting more spirit is great, and we don't really care too much about the reserving life, simply because we're mainly surviving through energy shield. Now let's go over our gear. For our scepter, we're going to be aiming for a rattling scepter. This gives us the skeletal warrior minions, and then on your rattling scepter, you're mainly looking for increased spirit, max level of your minion skills, and then if you can get added damage, that's great. Crit chance is great. Crit damage multiplier for the minions is also really, really great. If you can get a combination of all those things, you're going to be sitting pretty well. Then on our gear, we're prioritizing getting a bunch of resistances, but also max life and energy shield. Once again, via our Ascendancy skill with Bedat's Hand, we get +1 max energy shield per 8 max life. And so we can actually get a bunch of max life on our gear and energy shield and just get more energy shield from that max life. So these are the gloves we're rocking, some big reses and life. Belt has a ton of max life and resistances. On our boots, movement speed, rarity, a little bit of life, and some reses. This is the unique shield, the Oaksworn. The main reason we're using this is just because it's like the only way that you can get spirit on this slot. So this shield just comes with 50 spirit, which is awesome. Then on our rings, we've got max life, int, and reses. Body armor, big place to grab a ton of spirit, a bunch of max life, and energy shield. So this is what we're rocking, the rune shell. On your amulet, big place to look for spirit again, but also this is one of the few places that we can actually find plus levels of minion skills. Our skills massively scale off of plus levels, so that is really important to get on your amulet. And then on our helmet, we've also got +2 levels of minion skills, more max life, more energy shield, and some extra intelligence. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Huge thanks to Seroc for letting me feature his build guide on the channel. Seroc is a very, very talented minion enjoyer. It's why he got recruited to Maxroll a fair bit of months ago. And it's been really fun working on builds with him. This isn't the first build guide that I've featured on the channel. I featured a bunch of his Diablo 4 videos, and he comes up with some really awesome stuff. So yeah, go check him out if you got any more specific questions, and I will catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.